Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Really glad to have this man back. It's Steve Milloy. He is the former Trump EPA transition team member. You know him on X as at Junk Science, junkscience.com as well. Steve, glad to have you. How are you?
Hey, Joe, I'm doing great. Thanks. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Barack Obama try this same garbage when he was leaving office, when Trump was taking over, about stopping all the outer continental shelf drilling as he was supporting drilling in Brazil and supporting Venezuela? He was saying that we couldn't go and get our own. Didn't Obama do the same thing?
Yeah, it's happening all over again. So Biden has just done the same thing. Of course, Trump reversed Obama. They went to court. Trump really didn't get a chance to litigate it. A federal district court, the lowest level federal court, said that Trump did not have the express authority to reverse Obama's decision. But of course, that's ridiculous. That never would have survived on review. So Biden has tried it again, put the outer continental shelf off limits to oil drilling. Trump said today that, he doesn't care. He's going to reverse it, and he'll probably prevail.
Well, I would hope so, but I want to get into this a little bit more deeply because I remember pretty well when Obama said that you couldn't drill offshore. The outer continental shelf was out of bounds. China then got into bed with Cuba and said, hey, if they don't want to go get this stuff that's off the coast of Florida and off the East Coast, why don't we do it? So in other words, our enemy now can go and get the stuff that is there for us, our God-given resources, and join with another enemy or pseudo-enemy in Cuba and take those resources, put them on the world market, then we can buy it from them? Is that really what the plan was?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I remember when that happened. You're absolutely right. China is drilling off our coast because we can't. But even from an environmental perspective, it doesn't make much sense. The off the coast of Southern California, where they're trying to stop drilling, naturally 5 million gallons of oil seep into the ocean every year, which is 4 times greater than the famous 1969 Santa Barbara oil spill.
Wow.
Oil drilling would release that pressure. And there would be less
so literally,
pollution.
naturally, there's so much pressure that it's happening anyway, and we could actually go and help the environment by getting the pressure off. Really?
Right. Yes, that is absolutely true.
It's Steve Milloy. It's nuts. Isn't it nuts? Go and follow him at Junk Science on X, also junkscience.com. So as we're watching all this happen, the argument is we're going to somehow save the environment by saying you can't drill offshore here. But again, Obama said, sure, take that rig to Brazil. And I guess that's not on the same planet. Or it's okay that India and China pollute as much as they can. As long as we cut back on our pollution, we're going to save the planet. Steve, are we at the point now where it's critical mass, where people are starting to go, hold on a second, they might have been lying to us this entire time?
Yeah, look, we just elected a guy who throughout the campaign said climate is a hoax. Now, we have been brainwashed for the last 30 years. We've spent trillions of dollars on this nonsense. And here we have a guy elected who says it's a hoax, which, of course, I agree with.
Right.
And it is a hoax. What we need to get past, though, is, this declaring things national monuments and national parks, taking this land out of productive use. The federal government has been doing it for 100 years now. It started with, Grover Cleveland, and Teddy Roosevelt was famous for it. We've got to stop doing that. I mean, this is land that could be used productively. It should be given back to the states. We have a $36 trillion debt. We pay $1 trillion in debt service every year. We can't take land. We can't afford to take land out of circulation. Everything's got to be used productively.
I can agree with you more. It's Steve Milloy. Again, go follow him, junkscience.com. Let's talk about the mechanisms that are in place for Trump to undo what Biden's doing. Biden, I guess, put a couple of poison pills in this, in that it would, I think, dissuade investors from wanting to go and drill on these lands, even if Trump takes the ban off. How does that work?
Well, so that's Biden's general strategy, which he implemented with all his executive orders on day one. You just scare investors. Investors, when they invest in these projects, they're multi-year. They take a long time to get approved and start producing and pay the investors back. And investors are only going to go forward and invest the money up front if they know there's going to be a return. If the government or the environmentalists and the courts are going to drag everything out so that nothing ever happens, well, no one's ever going to invest. And that's really the goal here, to dissuade investors. It's what Biden did at the beginning of his term with all those day one executive orders. He sent a signal to fossil fuel investors that, you're not welcome here anymore. And it really set us back and set off inflation.
Well, it did. We saw that happen in real time. But now here's something else that happened in real time. Biden announces this ban yesterday. At my gas station here in Texas, it went up 22 cents a gallon. They always deal with the price of gasoline, the price of crude. They always deal with it in the future, don't they?
Yeah, no, all these prices reflect, what people think is going to happen in the future. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that it went up. It'll probably come down pretty quickly because we have plenty of oil. This has not affected the current oil supply. But it just, it makes everything more difficult than it needs to be. Biden's talking about the January 6th insurrection. I think what he's doing is insurrection because the American people have clearly expressed their preferences policy-wise, which is drill, baby, drill. And Biden is just throwing up this stuff that is not based in science. It's not based in the law. He's just doing it because he can. He's making it harder for President Trump to get, the MAGA agenda going. It's really it's crazy.
Well, it's Steve Milloy. Go and follow him at Junk Science over on X. Also go to junkscience.com. What's interesting is the lie for at least half a century has been we're going to run out of oil. It's going to happen. It's a finite resource. We got to do something else. Let's use the sun. Let's use wind. Let's use water. Let's use steam, whatever. But it turns out we're not running out of oil. I don't know if it's reproducing on its own. Maybe geologists can figure this out. But it turns out we've got, a couple of hundred years worth of crude, also a couple hundred years worth of natural gas, maybe more than that, right here underneath us, whether it be in Alaska or here where I am in Texas. So that ruse is done. So what's the new ruse? Well, you're ruining the planet, though, if you keep on using the oil. I mean, what can they go to now? Because we've exposed their 50-year lie.
Well, I mean, after peak oil, it sort of coincided with the rise of climate. So now, anytime every emission is destroying the planet, according to the climate hoaxers. But of course, that's not true.
Right.
We have plenty of energy. We have coal. We have oil, we have natural gas. What we should be doing is burning coal at home for electricity because it's the cheapest, and then exporting all that natural gas that we produce to places like Europe and Asia, where they will pay 6 times more than U.S. utilities. I mean, this is all backwards what we're doing, and it all comes out of climate. Climate has caused all this. The Obama war on the coal industry made it possible and fracking, those two work together to help Obama kill the coal industry. And Trump has said he's going to bring back the coal industry. Let's do that.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Steve, when President Trump sat down with the EU, he looked them in the face and said, I just want to make sure I understand what we're doing. You want me to protect you from Russia while you buy natural gas from Russia? Nope. Not going to protect you anymore unless you buy the LNG from us. They said, okay, fine, you're right. We will buy the LNG from you. Did Biden undo that? Are they still getting the LNG from us?
Well, they're getting some LNG for us. Recall that Biden put a moratorium on new LNG export terminals. If you don't have these export terminals, you can't export LNG. So Europe is still addicted to Russian oil and gas. I mean, now you have the situation where Russia is deciding to turn off its natural gas versus Europe saying, you know what, we're just going to buy from America. Biden has had a completely confused anti-American energy policy. I can't wait for 2 weeks from now when President Trump comes and just changes the landscape entirely. We're going to greenlight these export terminals, greenlight the pipelines, greenlight leasing on federal lands for coal, oil, and gas. And, we're going to reindustrialize America, and we're going to solve the problems we have, the financial problems.
Politicians, though, Steve, are pretty good at explaining why they're doing something, even if you and I disagree with it. What explanation could they possibly give to keep on just allowing Russia to enrich itself, finance the war against Ukraine from European money that could be spent with us? What reason could they possibly have been giving that they shut off the terminals or decided not to build new ones? This deal was a done deal. Russia would be starving if this deal kept on going. Did they give a reason?
Well, they use the environment as the excuse, global warming. There's going to be emissions.
Yeah, but the natural gas is still being used. It's just from Russia, not from us. It's not like it's like the whole Brazil comparison I made earlier. If we don't have that rig off of our shore and it goes to Brazil, is that a different planet? It's the same planet. So if climate change is real, and you and I agree that it's not, but if climate change were real, it's a moot point. You're still doing it on the same planet.
So, you and I can have a very realistic conversation what we're doing right now. But in the Biden White House, in the halls of Congress, on both sides, and in the media, you can't have this conversation because no one wants to talk about it. So no one really knows. So, how do they get away with it? They get away with it because no one wants to talk about it. How do we how do we have a $36 trillion debt? Because
Yeah.
we really haven't talked about it in great detail.
So what happens with the debt if we start getting our own production going again? And I believe that we will. Because, by the way, the Biden administration says we've given out all these leases. Yeah, but you're not allowing anybody to drill, so it doesn't matter. Plus, you shut down the Keystone XL. Plus, you don't have the terminals to export the LNG. So we get all that stuff up and running. How does that help our national debt? Because the argument will be from the left, well, these are major oil companies that are going to be making billions and trillions of dollars. It's not going to help our debt at all. Not going to help Americans.
Well, that's not true. I mean, by producing oil, producing our natural resources, we're going to become wealthier. And by becoming wealthier, we're going to be in a better place to manage the debt. I mean, we need to do, what we need to do is figure out how with, maybe tax cuts, spending cuts, and economic growth, someone needs to develop a model that shows us, what's possible, but we need to figure out a way to, get our debt under control. The only way, President Trump right now is thinking we're just going to grow our way out of debt. Well, I think that we can grow our way partially, but we're also going to have to cut spending, and to grow our way out of debt, we're also going to have to cut taxes. We're just going to have to do things really differently, which means we're going to have a lot more frank conversations, which we're not having right now.
It is Steve Milloy at Junk Science over on X, also junkscience.com on the web. Is it an all of the above sort of stance that we should have? Let me ask you this before you answer that, if you don't mind. Could we ever truly be energy independent? Could we have our own production? Could we refine it all and keep it all here? Why does it have to be in the world market? Why is oil a world market thing? If we could be self-sustaining, why not be?
Well, oil is just a global commodity, and that's just how it's bought and sold. Natural gas is not really a global commodity. Coal can be a global commodity, but I mean, we have plenty of energy. We really have infinite energy at home. We have, the coal, oil, gas we talked about before, plus we have nuclear power.
Yeah.
Okay. That's just really unbeatable. Now, you talked about all of the above. I just got to say, I'm not all of the above. Wind and solar is just junk. It's more expensive. It doesn't really help. It craps up the environment, kills the birds, kills the whales, produces no value, solves no problem. It's just stupid. So
I want to save my own face here a little bit if I can. I wasn't including them. I wasn't thinking wind and solar because they do suck. We all saw Solyndra. We also saw the windmills fail here in Texas when it got to 0 degrees because it's not efficient and it's ridiculous. In fact, they were having I believe it was the stations that were supposed to be delivering natural gas were shut down because they were run on wind power or something. That's how dumb it was that we would ever include solar and wind power. So you and I agree. Let me save a little face on that. But when you say nuclear, people freak out, Steve. They freak out because 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl and everything else. But the fact is, that's the cleanest, the best source, isn't it?
Look, if France is 75% nuclear, okay,
Wow.
the French can run nuclear, so can we. What happened at Fukushima in Japan, that was just if they had put the generators just 5 feet higher, they would have been fine, no problem.
Wow.
3 Mile Island, nothing really happened. Jimmy Carter, the nuclear engineer, shamefully let that really get out of control.
Right.
And with Chernobyl, I mean, that was a Soviet era construction, which is always a disaster.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really count. Nuclear power can be done safely. The fact that we have inhibited the development of nuclear power over the last 40 years has really put us behind the curve. Now we have, people are thinking about these smaller nuclear reactors, which go underground, don't really require regular maintenance, and can power small communities. There's lots of things we can do to provide the energy we need. And it's not going to come from wind and solar, so we have all the technology we need. We just need to do it. People need to stop listening to the environmentalists who are not really environmentalists. They're communists.
Yes.
We need to get these dumb ideas out of our heads that we need more national monuments, more national parks, and the federal government needs to manage everything. No,
Yeah.
We have
No,
real
I'm with you.
problems.
Well, if they manage it, then it gets worse. That's true. Then they take our money. By the time they're done spending it on their own, they don't have any left, and they need more money from us. Then they say taxpayers have to pay it. It is Steve Milloy, junkscience.com. One last question. I'm not familiar with the Liberty Energy CEO, Chris Wright. He's nominated to be the energy secretary. I know the current energy secretary is horrible. She never should have been in the position. Jennifer Granholm was a bad governor of Michigan, has no energy background, couldn't figure out. I think that it was her who couldn't figure out where to plug in the electric car when she was showing it off once. So, I mean, this was a complete failure, but again, a globalist ideology, which is all they really wanted. What does Chris Wright bring?
Well, so I just got to start out by saying we don't really need a Department of Energy to start with, but since we're, because it doesn't really do anything, but since we're going to have one, we might as well have a guy who has an energy background. Now, Chris Wright, he's got a deep background in fracking, started two companies, has become a multi-billionaire from fracking. He's actually he would be the first energy secretary we've ever had that had experience in the energy industry. It's really shocking.
Wait a second. We've never had one before that knows anything about energy?
No, they've all been politicians.
Wow.
Obama picked, I think a Nobel Prize winning physicist, but that's not an energy guy. That's just a physicist, right? So he's going to be the first guy from the energy industry. So it'll be really interesting. Maybe he can do something. Maybe he can turn the Department of Energy into something useful. Who knows? Right now, it's just a conduit mostly for Inflation Reduction Act money to go to left-wing groups, which, by the way, President Trump, if you're watching, you should inform these people that you're going to investigate all this money from the Inflation Reduction Act. If anybody is found on either side to have done something wrong, they're going to jail.
Let me finish with this with Steve Milloy, junkscience.com, at junkscience over on X. When Trump takes office on that first day, he can undo everything that Biden did yesterday. But again, the real issue is whether investors will want to take the chance because he's made it not attractive for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, investors are going to learn if they don't know already, on January 20th around noontime, they're going to learn that at least the federal government, at least the executive branch is on their side. Well, and now we have Congress. So they know that there's no bad laws coming down the pike, no bad regulations coming down the pike. The government is going to expedite their permits. I mean, that's a pretty good situation to be in. The Supreme Court is run by conservatives. I think conservatives need to learn how to do litigation better against the Greens on the environment, but that's a topic for another time, I guess.
Yes, no, we can definitely get there next time. Steve Milloy, junkscience.com, at junkscience on X. Thank you for explaining all that. I think it was very, very helpful because people were freaking out. And again, the gas station immediately pumped up the price. Hopefully it comes down very soon. Steve, thanks.
All right, Joe, thank you.
All right, brother. We're back after this. Stay right here.